Hi everyone, so today I'll be sharing my novice thoughts concerning The Return of the King. This is the third and final volume of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Just a little bit of context, as I was scripting this review, I haven't watched the movie adaptation of The Return of the King. So my talk will be based on my testimony as a new reader without any contextualization regarding the story whatsoever. And just a little bit of note, this talk will contain spoilers of the book and perhaps a little bit of the movie as well, because the movie is based on the book anyway. So for those of you who doesn't want to get spoiled, feel free to leave this video, but if you're okay with that, let's just get started. Okay, so the first thing that I want to touch upon regarding this volume is the pacing. So if you watch my video regarding the Fellowship of the Ring, and I will refer it as the first volume, and the Two Tower, I will also refer it as the second volume. When it comes to the first volume, I feel like the pacing is a little bit too slow for my taste, whereas I feel like the second volume has a just right pacing, whereas in this volume, I feel like the pacing could get really quick, even quicker than the second volume. But when it gets slow, it could feel like it is as slow as the first volume. So to be more specific, this volume is divided into two books. The first book mainly follows the three hunters' point of view, which is Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, or Merry or Pippin, whereas the second book mainly follows Sam and Frodo's storyline. So the first book has that action-oriented, and the sequence that are being structured is quite short as well. That's why I feel like the pacing regarding the first book is quicker, whereas the second book that mainly follows Sam and Frodo has that deliberate element to it, so the scenes aren't changing that quick. I noticed that even from the first volume, that when there is a scene that involves Sam and Frodo, there is this deliberate quality that the scene has, and I really feel that especially during the beginning portion of the first volume and also the ending portion of the second volume. Whereas when a scene that involves the three hunters or Merry or Pippin feels a little bit quicker. I do think that is a positive point regarding the story as a whole. So for those of you who likes pacing that's quite deliberate, who wants the author to provide rich world building, the context of the places, like the history and the culture, the first volume could definitely cater that, because majority of the first volume is written in that way. And I do think that this volume will be able to cater that as well, because there is one part that is written in that way, and especially someone who is a mood reader, I think this will really cater your needs. Sometimes mood readers can feel that they want to read a story that has a slower pacing or a story that has quicker pacing, and Lord of the Rings definitely has parts of the story that has quicker pacing or slower pacing. And another element of the third volume that I wish to talk about is how it provides balance between this high stake war element and also the grounding effect of the story, like the characterization and the internal struggle of the characters. So during my second volume Novice chat, I mentioned that I am in love with how the story is being structured, how it was able to give this intimate view regarding each of the Fellowship members' characterization, and I really thought that the second volume is the pinnacle of that. And I am so glad that I'm wrong, because this volume was able to provide even more intimate view regarding each of the Fellowship members and highlighting their relationship dynamic. So in this volume, the character that gets my huge respect, I remember that during the first volume I didn't really know him. It was probably like one of my nitpicks regarding the Fellowship of the Ring, is that sometimes I forgot that Merry is in the scene, but in this is basically cemented my love for the character. I could totally relate when he feels superfluous. Everyone seems to getting on and they know what their purpose are, but he seems to be just there being left alone. And the most heartbreaking part of his situation is that he pled to not be left alone, but he's still being left alone. And I love how it ties to Mary's eventual friendship with Eowyn, how they have like this parallel struggle of people not really looking at them. It's not like people are literally hating them or anything, but people just see that they are unable to help this grand war. But I mean, come on, spoiler alert. I mean, this is a spoilery chat. Of course, like they surpassed everyone's expectation. But I really like how this unlikely friendship between the Lady of Rohan and the Brandybuck Hobbit finally blooms. It really is the bonding moment between these two people who struggles with the problem of not being taken seriously. That really hits me. And speaking of bonding through struggle, I would also just touch a little bit on Eowyn's relationship with the second son of Denethor II, which is Captain Faramir. I read a lot of reviews that stated like, oh, it's just too fast, like their romance kind of come out of nowhere. I could totally see that side as well because, as I've mentioned, I haven't watched the movie adaptation when I read this particular volume. So when suddenly like they just talk and then all of a sudden they're married by the end, I'm like, okay. But at the same time, I think it's kind of justified because both Eowyn and Faramir were in a really difficult place, and it really is, that person when you need someone the most, that kind of bonding is really intense to the point that you don't really take time into the account anymore, at least not in a way when you are in a stable environment. So I do think that even though Eowyn's and Faramir's relationship progression is a little bit too quick, it does have its justification. Of course, regarding character relationship, this talk wouldn't be complete if I don't talk about Sam and Frodo's relationship. Oh my god, Sam is my hero. Of course, Frodo too, for it was no small feat for carrying the One Ring. The fact that Sam would be able to carry the ring for a moment, but like he was able to give it back to Frodo. I love the fact that Sam's enduring devotion and love for both the Shire and Frodo is highlighted in this. So chef kiss. And I really like that it's being shown in how he has a positive outlook in life. Even though like everything is going downhill, he knows that he might not see another day, but he has the courage to dream about being sung as a great hero in his later days. Speaking of the Shire, really like how the ending is being made. Again, this is also something that a lot of people kind of like complains about, which I don't think it's justified because like I don't think this is like the most traditional kind of ending. The Return of the King has so many endings. Like surely you could just like stop when either like Mount Doom or the coronation. But I am really happy that the story itself, the original story, I think, because like at this point I've seen the movie and the Shire bit is cut off, but I really like the original story has the Shire ending because not only that it's so unexpected. I thought that after like Elazar is like crowned, everybody is happy, everything is sunshine and butterfly, but it's not. And that what makes this story realistic. And I mean, in a way, this ending is kind of like a plot twist. Really like the fact that they include Saruman even more in the story. The utilization of Sauron's evil is already tied so well with the Ring storyline, but sometimes I do feel like Saruman's storyline is a little bit left out. So the fact that he is the troublemaker. He is the one who causes the Shire chaos is really appropriate. I would also confess this, sometimes I even forgot that Saruman's in the story because like he comes and go in a huge gap. So when he does reappear, I was like, oh, okay, there's this guy that the storyline hasn't been resolved. So when he does reappear, I feel that, shocking moment, which I love. I love being shocked by a story. It wouldn't be boring. It wouldn't be predictable. And as I've mentioned before, but I would like to go back to the point again, I mentioned that the Shire ending also provides a more realistic ending, especially in the context of war. How people are still scarred with it, how it has very real consequences, and it is such a big thing that will leave a mark to someone forever. And I really like the way that the story is able weave that through how Frodo's, like he will heal, but that healing is not like 100%. He will always have, that mark forever. The hobbits, when they came back to the Shire, things had changed super drastic. Not just the things in the Shire, but also they are changed. Their perspective has changed, their experience has changed, their relationship dynamic has changed, and I think it really provides nuance to the story in no way or form that the story tries to glorify war. Of course, there's songs that are written like heroes here and there, but really isn't about that. And it is shown by Frodo's state after he destroyed the ring really illustrates that it isn't about that. I also really like how the characters that already appeared a long time ago from the first volume reappeared in here. For example, a character like Gildor Inglorion, and then also even like less likable character like Bill Ferny also made an appearance in here as well. So there's really that comforting moment when they reappear. It's always nice to see a familiar face. Overall, of course, I really enjoyed this volume. I think it provides a great, thorough conclusion regarding the story, especially the Shire bit. But I would say that if I have to choose which volume is the most enjoyable to read for me, it would be the second volume still, because I just really like the Fangorn Forest as a setting and also Faramir's whole sequence. But this volume does provide me with a greater level of understanding concerning the story, concerning the characters and their relationship dynamics with one another. However, I must say that I don't think the pacing in the story is the most stable. So I think in conclusion, I would definitely recommend reading the Lord of the Rings story as a whole. I think it is a really neat story, even though I would say that I personally have a problem with the pacing sometimes, especially for the first and this one as well. But I think that Tolkien's world building is that rich to the point that if you miss it, it's really wasteful, really, because his world building is great. And I would also touch just a little bit on his writing style. Definitely his writing style is quite particular. I don't think it is everybody else's cup of tea. So maybe if that's that's not really for you, that is completely understandable as well. Okay, so that was it, my novice thoughts on The Return of the Kings, and this will then conclude my novice thoughts regarding the Lord of the Rings story. I'm so not ready to part with this world yet. There are still a lot of questions that I need answered, like Glorfindel. I really want to see him again, and I already know that he will reappear in the Fall of Gondolin. I figure I should read the Silmarillion first. So, wish me luck, I guess. I'm so scared. I am really scared. But at this point, because I really want to know Glorfindel's storyline, and I really want to know what's the deal with Fëanor, because I seen a lot of tags on Tumblr that he's some kind of a hotshot or something. So I really want to know. I really want to know his storyline. So yeah, maybe I will try the Silmarillion next. We shall see. Right. So I hope that this discussion will help you in determining whether the story as a whole or this volume is worth your time. Let me know in the comment section below if you read this book, what do you think about it, or if you are planning to read this book, or you have a question regarding in approaching this book as a first timer. I'm going to sign out now, but before that, I would like to thank everyone who made it to the end. Thank you guys so much for watching, and may your tea will always be warm for reading.